Hello, mate.
Oh, then, mate, all right?
Yeah, not bad. How are you?
Yeah, can't complain, yeah. Bit
Good.
knackered, but yeah, the usual.
Yeah.
Uh,
Whereabouts are you? I can't remember.
up in Manchester,
Oh, right. Okay.
but yeah, I had my boy over the weekend, so that was suitably knackering.
How old's your boy?
He's 5.
All right. Yeah, that
Went
is knackering.
went to do like a vlog at the Libertines on Friday, and like
Oh,
a bit of a late one, so had him early doors on Saturday, so not really caught up, but all good.
oh my God. Where did the Libertines play?
Halifax Peace Hall. I don't know if you've been
Oh,
there.
yeah.
It's
No, no.
ace, the venue.
I was invited to a gig there last Saturday to see Echo and the Bunnymen. Or no, in fact, it was this Saturday they were there, but I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
make it. I was busy, so I couldn't make out there. But my mate's from Halifax, so he's always banging on about what a great venue it is.
No, yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, it's a bit of a mission from you, like, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'll go
Ace
there one
t-shirt,
day.
by the
Yeah, cheers, man. Getting a bit washed out now, but I'm very, very proud of this one.
way. Class. All right, mate. Well, cheers for coming on again.
Absolute pleasure.
Appreciate that. This time on the Islington Radio Show to pick some of your favourite songs of the 2000s.
Great.
Obviously, I listened. Yeah, got in touch to listen to your book, your latest book recently. I guess it's been out a while now, has it?
It came out in February. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So still quite new.
Yeah, yeah. You gone down like as well as the others type thing, or better or anything?
I think so. I don't know what the sales are yet, but the vibe I got from it was it seemed to be, I mean, it got a lot of press coverage, which is always good. Doesn't always translate to sales, but we were in all the papers and on radio and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, my until I get like the official sort of update from the publisher or from my agent, the only sort of sales impression I get is like I've got a local bookshop that I sort of anyone wants a signed copy, I put them to them. So if they keep calling and saying you got to come in and sign another 10 copies or whatever on a regular basis, then I feel like, oh, okay, this is going quite well. So I haven't done one there for ages, but in the first like sort of 6 weeks, I was in and out every day, so that seemed good. Yeah, but I think I'll leave a bigger gap next time. It's like it was quite fast, just a 2 year gap sort of thing. I think I need to like leave a slightly longer gap just for my own sort of energy and also just like a little bit longer kind of gets your regular readers more anticipation. It's like albums, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, how does it work? Do you get an idea and then approach your agent or whatever, or a publisher, or do they come looking for work for you from you?
Well, in this case, it was like because the last book did well, the publisher was sort of almost immediately within like a week or two of sort your head out coming out. They were like that your publisher always gets first refusal on the next book anyway, and they said straight away, "Have you got any ideas?" And I said, "Yeah," and so we sort of wrapped it all up really quick. But on all my previous books, yeah, usually I'd just like have an idea, pitch it to my agent. My agent takes it round to various publishers, and then someone buys it, sort of thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I imagine, like, I've listened to both your books, or both your recent books via audio. You must get a lot of people doing that just because they're used to kind of your podding
yeah, yeah.
voice type thing.
These last two books, I think they've sold. I don't know, maybe even more on audio book than in print because of that, because of podcasts, and because audiobooks just generally are booming in sales. Like
Okay.
across the board, it's a much more sort of popular format now. But yeah, for me with a podcast audience, it's particularly popular. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yes, well, it's called Stop Shitting Yourself for anyone that is listening and doesn't know. And
yeah,
yeah, it's quite fitting for me really because yeah, a couple of years ago I became like a co-parent, if you like, of yeah, I mean my boy is technically disabled, he's autistic, so
right.
everything became a bit more well, yeah, you just start shitting yourself more about stuff.
Stressful.
Yeah, just that everything just feels a bit more magnified or whatever in terms of problems or whatever, or potential problems.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting to listen to the book, definitely
I think
resonated a lot.
I wrote a bit about parenting in there, and it was like I think to be honest, worrying as a parent, like the worry that you feel about your kids is probably the biggest source of anxiety you can have. And to be honest, I shared some of that in the book, but obviously my kids are teens, and I sort of think I've got a certain responsibility to them and their own life and privacy. So you can't actually go deep into, you know, everything that's going on with regard to your kids, because that's their business, not yours to share. But I would, so I didn't, the chapter I write about parenting sort of touches upon those situations, but it doesn't go deeper. But to be honest, yeah, I mean, parenting, as beautiful and wonderful as it is, there's all those phrases like "you're only ever as happy as your least happy child" is absolutely true. It doesn't matter how well things are going in your life. If there's any problems in your kids' life, you carry that with you everywhere. It's very, very stressful, isn't it?
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Kind of when I've got one boy, obviously it's great having him, but everything just feels a bit more heightened. Like things can get in
Mm,
my head a lot easier. Like I don't know
mm,
why.
mm.
He's kind of on edge a bit more, I think.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah.
mean, I'm very much the same. I'm really the same, and it's like, to be honest, you know, I still struggle. My kids are like 13 and 17, 13 and 18, and I'm like, still every day, it's in my head, and I do get very, very anxious and stressed, and you have to separate yourself from it and remember they're human beings, they're separate entities to yourself. But it's hard. I've been in this year, I've been through a couple of bad periods where I've had to like really sort of, remind myself that you need to make time for yourself, and and you've got your own life, and you need to make space for yourself to sort of, relax or be happy or switch off from other people's problems, sort of thing.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think the just rest philosophy
Mm,
is definitely one I subscribe to. And stopped drinking a
good.
couple of years ago as well, which is I just had to basically in my situation. Anything
Yeah.
adding to like the anxiety, which I just had to go really. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult because obviously when you suffer from anxiety, it is very often the quickest route out in the short term is booze. So it's a real catch-22. I think it was played a big part in my drink problem. Was I'm an anxious person, and it was, you know now if I go for a spell of anxiety, which is much less common since I stopped drinking, but it still happens. I still have those times, and actually this year, a couple about quite recently, in about sort of June time, I went through probably the worst spell of a few weeks that I've had in years in terms of stress and anxiety. And I knew that in the past, funny enough, it was around the time of my 10th anniversary of being sober, 10-year anniversary. But I knew in the past that I could have just, when those feelings were haunting me and I couldn't clear them from my head, I could have gone straight down the boozer or whatever, and it would have cleared it for like a couple of hours or whatever for an evening. And then the next day it would come back worse. Plus, in those hours in the pub, I would have added a load of new problems, probably with my behaviour or the money that I'd spent or the health impact or whatever. So I often remind myself that no matter how bad things are, they'd only be worse if I was also boozing.
Yeah, yeah. And I found like the zeros are quite a good placebo as well. I found, like on Friday, I had to be quite social or whatever. I don't know if it's just like that muscle memory of having a beer or like something that tastes like beer kind
Mm.
of relaxes you slightly.
Yeah, yeah, and it's refreshing, and it is like the sense that you're having a grown-up drink, like that feels different to what you drink in the day, as a sort of that marks the end of a day. I mean, I will often do that. Like, I'll start cooking for the family at around 6 or something, and while I'm cooking, I'll put on some music and I'll open like a Heineken Zero or a Guinness Zero, and yeah, it's nice. You don't need I mean, I mean, some people do want the alcohol, that's fine, I've got no, but for me personally, I feel like I don't need to have the alcohol. It's more like it's a symbol. It's almost like a ritual, to be honest, that sort of draws a line under the day and moves you into sort of, okay, relax time now.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I really enjoy one, especially in the summer. Takes the edge off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, speaking of your kids, really enjoyed your story about going to Oasis. The whole uh, situation with getting the tickets and everything from Noel
Oh,
Gallagher.
yeah, yeah. It was an amazing. It was a story for the ages, and it was just an old mate of mine who is sort of an old mate from uni who we like shared a huge love of Oasis back then in that sort of mid 90s era when they came out, and it was kind of like the band that sort of brought us together as mates. We started uni in like '94, which was just when Oasis were sort of, you know, getting big when they first released the first album, and we kind of bonded over it, and we'd been back in touch recently a lot. In fact, he knew that I'd been struggling a bit with anxiety and my mental health, and so he'd sort of like got in touch and been quite kind and supportive. And then obviously we'd started talking about Oasis because in the '90s we went to see them a number of times together, and and you know, I think a couple of days before the gig we were out and we were talking about, you know, did you try and get tickets? Do you still want to go? Because when it first got announced, we were a bit cynical and thought, it's all in the past. I don't want to revisit that. It'll be cringy or whatever. And then as it got closer and you saw all the posts from other people who'd been saying how incredible it was, like you just caught the bug. And we went from being a bit cynical about it to being fucking hell, I'd love to go. And then we were like, um, I will never do it now. And he actually sort of works in that industry, the music industry, and he's often the guy that I would call to sort of if I'm trying to blag a ticket for something last minute. I mean, this is a bloke. I've known him for years, but he's since got into the music industry, and like now he will sort me out quite good tickets, quite a short notice. And I said, "Can't you blag us some?" He's like, "You must be joking. These are rarer than rocking horse shit." He went, "No one can blag these tickets," and I was like, "Oh, okay, oh well, never mind." And then in the end, I mean, I won't tell the full story now unless you want me to, but basically, I will if you want. But I basically, cut a long story short, on the Friday, I was thinking I really want to go to this Saturday gig, and I've gone on like Twickets and a couple of those other kind of resale sites, and I knew I couldn't go unless I took the whole family, because my wife loves Oasis. We grew up listening to them as well, and now both my kids absolutely love them, and there was no way I would be able to go. It was like all of us or none of us. Do you know what I mean? So I'm looking at resale tickets, and it's going to end up 2 grand, right? Which is money I can't, you know, I haven't got that kind of money to chuck around. However, I do have a credit card, and I'm thinking to myself, I was getting close. My finger was hovering over the button, and
Because
then
that's face value, isn't it? There wasn't any touting or
uh,
something, or was it?
I don't know. These were resale tickets. I
Right,
don't
right.
know if people were selling them for profit or not. I couldn't work that out. But I knew that's what I was going to have to spend.
Yeah.
And then I thought, hang on, that's a lot of money. There must be some. I mean, I might as well. I won't forgive myself unless I like, you know, WhatsApp a few contacts I've got. So I had about a list of about 5 people who were maybe in some way connected to the band or knew one of the brothers or, you know, sort of friends of friends or whatever. I thought, I'll email around. And then someone who's a mutual friend of mine and Noel's, and I have met Noel a few times, and like, you know, I've interviewed him and we always got on, and I did have his number, but and we have exchanged texts over the years, and he's always been surprisingly friendly, which is a big thrill to me, you know, having grown up such a big Oasis fan, that I sort of there was no way we in a million years you could describe us as pals. But when I've had to text him about a couple of things, he's always, you know, sort of had a good record of getting back and being quite friendly. And I've always been, you know, tried to act cool about it, but obviously been really excited. And when I asked this mutual friend about tickets, he said to me, "Listen, text Noel. He knows who you are. He likes you." And I was like, "No, don't be silly." And I got all shy, and he went, "No, seriously." He goes, "I'll ask him for you if you want, but it'll probably be better coming from you." So I send him a message, and there's 5 people that I've sent messages to, plus Noel, and I've got the WhatsApp open on my laptop, and I'm waiting to see who starts responding first. And my kids happen to be in the room. It was a Friday afternoon. It's summer holidays, and I've told them that I've texted a few people back tomorrow, but we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, it's a big long shot. My daughter goes, "Did you text Noel?" Giggling 'cause she knows I've got his number. And I went, "Yeah, I did." But I said, to be honest, he's the last one who's going to get back to me. But, and she went, "Oh, it's quite cool you texted him." And then it's like those 3 little grey dots suddenly appear. And the first name they appear under, are Noel Gallagher. And it says Noel Gallagher is typing. And I was like, and it was like funny. It was like, I'm gone to the whole. Oh my God, Noel's texting me back. And they all gather around the laptop waiting for the response to drop. Anyway, he gets back to me. He's taking the piss a bit for me asking at such late notice, as if like, what are you fucking talking about? As if. But I sort of carried it on. I mean, my wife gave me a great line to give back to him because he said, "You're asking me now," as if to say, "Fuck's sake." And my wife said, "You should text him back. I've only just heard you getting back together." So I did, and he obviously found that quite funny because then we just started having a bit of a laugh, and then he like 5 minutes later he sent me a contact and said, "Call this person, they'll sort you out." And I thought, oh, I can't. It's not really, you're like, it's not really going to happen. And then I did contact the person, and they did get back, and they did sort me out. And it was my daughter's 18th on the Monday, and I've never felt like a cooler dad than being able to say to her, "I've got us 4 tickets. Noel Gallagher sort them out." And when the tickets come through, they're friends and family tickets, and Noel's name are on them. And my daughter and my son, who have a very healthy attitude towards taking the piss out of me morning, noon, and night, which I really respect, and it's how I've raised them. And I'm a dad and an idiot, and I deserve it. But this was a rare occasion where they were like, "Okay, for 24 hours, we're going to accept that this is a pretty cool thing for you to have pulled off. But after that, shut up about it." So it was great, and it was as I'm sure everyone's bored of hearing now, especially those people who haven't been to the gigs. It was sensational. I would say it's comfortably the best, most memorable gig of my life, just because of that story behind it, but also having my wife and kids are like my wife and I got together in '95, so literally songs like Live Forever and Slide Away sort of soundtrack the early days of our relationship. So they mean a lot to us. And then to have our 2 kids there who love the songs and sing along to every word of every song, it was, and then just the atmosphere in Wembley Stadium of everyone sort of feeling similar feelings, like a mix of nostalgia and emotion, and just that thing. They're cliches I've read a million times over the last couple of weeks, but they're so true. This is the people's music. This is people's music. Noel used to joke so much in interviews about how he didn't take lyrics seriously and lyrics stupid and I don't care, I just make it rhyme. But that's all bollocks. He's an amazing lyricist. And people talk about Liam's voice or their knack for melody or the sound, the exhilarating sound of their guitars. But what people overlook is, I think, one of the biggest things about Oasis and the way in which they bring the country together in that sort of way is the lyrics, because they're about normal working class lives and you know and but the optimism and beauty and hope that can cut through sometimes the melancholy and the struggle. And that's what we all fucking need. Oasis music is like therapy, but they are true like national anthems as well. And you could see that in the Wembley Stadium, 90,000 people sing along to every song from the first song to the last, as if every one was an encore, you know, because they're tough times we live in. And they're also very angry and divided times, much more so than they were in the mid 90s when those songs were written. And it was sort of like a shot in the arm. So as you can tell, it was a very emotional experience.
No, yeah, yeah. I mean, Wembley does look like the best one I've seen so far. But
Well, I texted Noel to say thank you the next day, and he said to me it was a great night, and I said, well, I'm sure they all are, and he said pretty much, but the band all agreed that this was the night, and I thought, I wonder if he says that to all the boys. But either way, I took it.
yeah, yeah. He seems to like love people in that kind of talk sport universe as well, doesn't
Yeah, maybe that's it as well. I think when I first met him, I think he'd heard me on Talk Sport, and he also strangely was. I used to do a regular slot on Sky News in the morning for about 10 years, and when I first met him, he said, "Oh yeah, I watch you on Sky News," and I was quite surprised, partly
he?
because it used to be so early in the morning. I didn't think rock stars got up that early. But he seemed a fan of my output on that, so yeah, maybe that's it. I think that's yeah. I think he's just a bloke, isn't he? He's like a bloke from a working class part of Manchester, and I think he relates to other guys who have got similar sort of background or similar sense of humour. But it's interesting because I just wonder. There's lots of rock stars who are from those sorts of backgrounds, but I wonder whether, for instance, Bono or The Edge would still respond to some Tom, Dick, or Harry like me that they'd heard on the radio or who liked football. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't want to do Bono and the Edge a disservice. But so many of these stars are from working class backgrounds, but they seem to just drift away. Do you know what I mean? Into bubbles where they just exist outside of normal society. But that doesn't seem to be Noel at all. I mean, even Liam, you sort of think you could imagine Liam not owning a phone, couldn't you? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
He's sort of otherworldly. He's like a rock star, whereas Noel seems just like just some like a great lad.
Yeah, there's a story I was reading about the Libertines approaching Liam in a pub, and they were like, "Do you want to come back to ours and play guitar?" And he was like, "Nah, I'm the devil's dick, mate. I don't do that.
I'm a what?
I'm the devil's dick. I don't do that. I don't do that type of thing." But
Amazing.
yeah, I saw Noah was on Talksport. Like, I think Jamie O'Hara was trying to tap him up for tickets, and he was like, "Oh, just because your girlfriend likes probably had Wonderwall once or something." So you can tell he's
Excellent.
absolutely loving like
Yeah, yeah,
the whole
yeah.
banter around it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I said to him, I said, this is what the country needs right now. And he went, yeah, who would have thought it, eh? And I think he knows that, like, that people were very cynical. I mean, and I was one of them. I wasn't. I mean, look, I love Oasis, so I've never like slagged them off. I would never do that because I've always had a understanding of what the part they played in my life and so many other people's. But with the reunion, having seen Liam do his Definitely Maybe tour the year before, and I took my kids to that, and that was at the O2, and he was great, but I felt, it felt a bit 90s cosplay at times, and there was a lot of sort of kind of laddie behaviour that sort of spilled into being kind of obnoxious,
Yeah, I
which
remember you talking about it. It sounded a bit more aggro than the Oasis
it was
gigs
a bit
recently.
aggro, and like there was a lot of people who I thought were younger who were sort of cosplaying the 90s, and they kind of thought that sort of, I mean, it was laddie in the 90s, but not in a hooligan way. There is a difference. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like everyone was being a fucking hooligan. There, people probably acted like dicks. We all did, but when you get to it where it's like people are being aggressive or chucking piss around, right? Or you know whatever, like that's like, nah, come on, that's not really our, this is not, we're not West Ham Millwall. Do you know what I mean? This is a, at the end of the day, this is a fucking indie band. Do you know what I mean? It's an
Yeah,
indie
yeah.
band. That's the other thing people forget. It's like indie music. These guys grew up listening to the Smiths, and so did their fans. That's the crowd. That's the vibe. And everyone was a bit laddie in the 90s, but let's not fucking start throwing pots of piss everywhere. So I was like, oh, maybe it's going to be like that. It hasn't been like that. It's been the opposite because it brought everyone together, and it was so beautiful. The generational diversity there. Not so much the racial diversity. It was sort of 98% white, but you know,
I remember saying you
that's
saw Chisora there, didn't you? Derek
I
Chisora.
saw Derek Chisora, yeah, because Andy, I do the podcast with, said, did you see any black people there? And but listen, there's loads of gigs you go to where it's. I mean, I went to Public Enemy. The last gig I went to for Oasis, I think, was Public Enemy at the Albert Hall last month, and I would say that was 95% white. You know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's sort of quite militant racial politics in a lot of their early lyrics. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I don't really lose sleep over what the racial makeup of a thing of a crowd is, but what I do think is that there was just a lovely sort of togetherness at the gig I went to, and from what I've read or heard from people who went to other nights in other venues, it's been the same everywhere, and there's been none of that kind of laddie piss throwing nonsense.
Yeah, yeah. That does seem more like a family affair, the Oasis
Mm.
stuff. All right, mate. We'll move on to your songs then before I keep you all day. So you've picked 10 eclectic songs from the 2000s, really. Kicking off with Alicia Keys, If I Ain't Got You. Why this particular song?
I love this song. I think, it took me so long when you asked me to do this playlist because the noughties for me is such an incredible decade for music, and it is so eclectic. And for me, it's the last great decade of music, but that's probably because after that I got too old to keep up thoroughly. But I started trying to make a top 10, and in the end, I'm on to a top 80. and I've got that list as well on my Spotify, and it was so difficult. But the I would say there's only maybe one, two songs that were unequivocally on it, and this was the first one top of the list. This is probably my favorite song of that era. I think it's just a beautiful soul song. I think that Alicia Keys is like a genius. This is probably her best song, and yeah, I think that she was like she's in the same lineage as Stevie Wonder, who's one of my favorite sort of top two or three artists ever. And she, you know, she's multi instrumentalist, a beautiful voice, incredible songwriter. I just love this song.
Okay, so let's play it then. Here's Alicia Keys with If I Ain't Got You. Then the next one was interesting because it's one that cropped up when I asked people to like say their noughties indie one banger wonders, and this song came up. Johnny Boy, you are the generation that bought more shoes and you get what you deserve.
Yeah,
But yeah,
unbelievable.
what
I
do you
would
remember
say
from this? Yeah.
this was the other one that I thought this is a nailed on one. And the thing about it is, I don't know anything really about Johnny Boy. And yeah, One Bang I Wonder. I mean, I don't, I should maybe research him more because I've always loved this song. And I remember reading at the time in this era, I wrote about music in The Guardian Guide, which was a magazine that no longer exists, but used to be quite popular in that era. And I'd sometimes do single reviews or interview bands. And one of my sort of best mates, certainly one of my best mates in journalism, is called a guy called Michael Holden, and he, some weeks I'd do the single reviews, sometimes he would do them. And the week he did it, he gave an astoundingly. I mean, he is not a guy who's easy to impress. I am. I'm very easy to impress. He is much more cerebral and discerning than me, and I don't think I've ever read him write with such enthusiasm for anything than he did about this song. So I straight away went and got my hands on it, and yeah, it just sounds like Phil Spector. I don't know anything about this band. I mean, but it just sounds like a Phil Spector track. It's like the production and the melody and everything. It's a beautiful song. I can listen to it again and again.
Yeah, I might try and do some research on try and get him on the
Mm,
pod. But yeah, we'll play the song. I won't try and pronounce the song title again. But here's Johnny Boy. And then got Kelly Rowland next, obviously a big figure of the 2000s from
yeah.
being in a group and solo. But yeah, what are your memories of this one?
Well, Destiny's Child for me are like one of the best acts of the decade, and so in the top 10, I'm like I chose and then removed various Destiny's Child tracks, then obviously some Beyonce tracks as well. But then in the end, I thought actually a lot of people think, well, Crazy in Love, but to me that's one of those songs like Don't You Want Me is in the 80s. It's like an absolute banger that's become too played. So you just lose sight of what a banger it is and you just can't really listen to it anymore, which is a
Mm.
shame. But Work, I always thought it was better. I thought it was the better track. I don't know much about who produced it or wrote it or anything like that, but it's just an incredible, multi-dimensional, like absolutely incredible dance track. And Kelly Rowland, yeah, I think she beat Beyonce here.
Yeah, she had another massive one, didn't she? Was it When Love Takes Over? That was 2000s, was it? Or maybe 2010 or something.
But she also had a duet with Nelly,
Of course, yeah, yeah.
which
Dilemma.
also made my long list. So when you're doing the top 10, you want to represent a lot of different things that you like, and Destiny's Child had to have some representation on here. And I thought, this nudges out Beyonce and any of their singles like Bootylicious or whatever.
Okay, so let's play it. Here's Kelly Rowland with Work. And then the next song is one of those songs that kind of crossed over. Like you'd hear it at all types of nights. I remember, like, even at indie nights, American Boy by Estelle with Kanye West.
Oh yeah.
Similar memories, yeah.
Again, I thought, Kanye West needs to have some presence but I think I might put on another Kanye song on the list. I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah.
But I did, I think maybe all of his first three albums came out in the noughties, which is to me the good Kanye era, also the relatively sane Kanye era too. Um, and Estelle is from West London, same area that I grew up in, and she did a great song before this called 1980, which was just sort of singing about growing up in that area in the 80s. So that's why I sort of, developed an interest in her because even the video of it brought, but it was sort of, I felt kind of I could relate to a great deal. And then when she did this, I just think this is extraordinary. Again, there's Empire State of Mind and there's this. I always think of the two songs in a similar category, but I think this is the better track.
No, yeah, fair play. Well, here it is. Here's Estelle and Kanye West with American Boy. And then the next one, yeah, it's one of those. There's a few on your list that I'd forgotten about type thing until I heard it. And the chorus of this one from Robin, definitely remember from back in the day. But she's, can imagine you being very into her for some reason, from what I know from your music taste.
Yeah, well, you're right to say that because it's sort of Robin kind of, combined so many of the sort of types of music I like. I mean, there's a real kind of pure, pristine pop to it, isn't there, to all of her songs? And there's a few great singles she had out in the noughties, and I could have picked any of them. But when I played them back to myself whilst torturing myself, I have to say, mate, I tortured myself over this list.
Yeah, good to
And
hear. Yeah.
in the end, and it's funny, my daughter who's 18, the noughties are so big now. Maybe it's because of your podcast, I don't know, but the noughties are so big amongst her generation that she has very strong opinions on noughties music. So she got heavily involved and tried to influence my choices. I don't think she was involved in this one. But yeah, I mean, Robin, you're right. Yeah, she just sort of distills a lot of the great music that I'm into. And I think this was just the one that I liked most that day.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a bit of a crossover with Naughty's Indie because Kings of Leon covered Dancing on My Own, I think.
Did they? I didn't know that.
You know, when Live Lounge was like a massive thing at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they did that. It's a pretty good cover, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, that's a great song. I think that might have been 2010. And I didn't
Oh,
know
okay.
whether you categorized that as noughties. I suppose not. So I left that out. Um, but this one has a talking bit in it, which I love as well. I love a talking bit in a song.
Okay, so well, here it is. Here's Robin with Be Mine. Then you're halfway through the songs. I just wanted to ask about writing, like kind of you and mutual friend Tommy Stewart as well.
Mm,
He's writing, so he wrote an article for the big issue about going sober and everything. So I was like going
yeah,
to try my hand at it, just like even just for myself, probably quite cathartic. But is there any
it
advice
is.
you'd give for people trying to like start writing type thing?
What, to get published or just for their own?
Um, I guess yeah, just to start off, maybe or like with an idea of getting published, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, I always think it's a really good idea nowadays to start something like a Substack, because I think when I started out writing in like the late 90s, you had to sort of, you couldn't get anyone to pay attention to unless you had something published that you could send to them, even if it was in a fanzine. But that was kind of hard to do. I remember I had one piece I'd written for a university magazine, an interview with the band Space, because could you remember them? They'd
Yeah,
come
yeah.
to my campus to do a gig, and I'd interviewed them, written it up. It was like about, I don't know, 600 words. It got published. It was all right. And then when I wanted to become a journalist, when I left university about a year later, I just sent this one piece off to loads of people. And I don't think it actually got me anywhere, to be honest. I don't think anyone hired me off the basis of that. But you need something. Whereas now you can just start writing and put your stuff out and as you're doing it, you can refine it, you can polish it, you can get feedback, and sometimes you can get attention. But the main thing is that it's like it's like playing a sport. It's like throwing a ball at a basketball net every day. The more you do it, the better you get, the more relaxed you get at doing it. Because writing, a lot of being of writing is about relaxing, because only once you relax and stop thinking about it too much, can you really start to express your own unique voice on the page, I think. And that comes a lot through just repetition. But if you're sitting around waiting for people to commission you or pay attention to you, you're not going to be able to write very regularly. Now you can just write for yourself and keep it on your computer, and that's fine too. But I think if you start up a Substack or something similar tomorrow, then straight away there's a little bit of pressure on you because you do think people might read it, and you might even get subscribers who might be expecting you to send something out as well. So that gives you a little bit of motivation. But the jeopardy's low because it's just you're in charge of it. So just keep doing it and keep doing it. And then, for me, I started a Substack in lockdown because I thought, oh, I've never written about my mental health or sobriety before, but it's something to do, and and I had time to kill in lockdown, and that grew, and I sort of developed my voice, and in the end, that's effectively what ended up being my last two books because it got noticed. And but the main thing was not about publicizing myself or my voice. I already had a career as a writer. It was more about practicing writing in a new style, which was with real trying to find a very honest way of writing about my own experiences with mental health and sobriety. And the first thing I wrote, if I look back now, I probably cringe at it, but I just kept going, and in the end, I got into a rhythm. So that's my advice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm talked to Paul Stokes recently, who's ex NME
Right.
journalist, and he was saying like, back in the day, you could make a career of freelancing for one magazine, I think he said. But
Yeah.
that kind of changed rapidly with like the money and the and internet, everything. Is that what you
Mm.
found as well, type thing?
Back when I mean, nowadays my career is different. So for me, I'm lucky in that I make money in different ways, predominantly off podcasts, to be honest. And so I can write, I can write a bit more discerningly. Like I can write what for whom from whom I like. But there was a time in the noughties where I made the majority of my money from freelancing for a lot of different people, and I can't say I ever managed to do it just off of the back of one. But there was a time in the noughties where I was probably writing for the Guardian, the NME, Q, couple of lad mags, and I think I had, and then like I had a column in a woman's mag, like Company magazine as well. So it was mainly music and pop culture for the Guardian, but then loads of other stuff, and it was a brilliant time, brilliant way to make a living. So much fun. And I've no idea if there are still people around doing that because there aren't as many publications as there used to be. And I get the impression that writing online is pretty poorly paid. My own experience now, when I write for the papers mainly, and I've had a column in the big issue for like about 15 years. They, the pay's fine, but it doesn't seem much different to what it was when I started writing, which was in 1998. So it hasn't really like risen in terms of inflation. And in fact, some of the newspapers in particular probably pay less now than they once did, you know. So I think it's a tough way, but I've right from the beginning always taken a very like I've always tried to be completely diverse in what I'm doing. And I've always worked across print, yeah, but I've always been doing audio and TV and stuff like that because I sort of think, oh, well, I'm a journalist, but why would I narrow my platform to one particular medium? That would just, to me, that just seemed mad. So even in the noughties, yeah, I was writing for all those people, but I did TV, I did bits of radio, and my secret weapon in terms of earning back then in my 20s was I did loads of voiceovers. I managed to get in on the voiceover racket during that era. And if you tuned into MTV in the mid noughties, all those little promos in between the main shows, nine times out of 10, it would be me going, this week on the real world. Da, 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 da. And I did ads for like everyone from PlayStation to Wilkinson Sword to the bloody army. I was the geezer for a while who went, Army, be the best, which was
No
funny.
way.
Which was funny because, like, you'd see these guys in the ads and they were like these, big, tough lads jumping out of aeroplanes going, yeah, join the army, it'll make you into the man you are today. And I would be like stumbling around Soho with, like, I was skinny as a rake, very pale, always hungover with very long lank hair, and I looked about, I looked like the polar opposite of anyone who you think would be a fantastic recruit for the British Armed Forces. And I would tend to like be in Soho, maybe interviewing someone or having meetings, and then I'd get a call from my voiceover agent, and they'd go to this studio on Mordor Street now. We've got you an ad in short notice for the army, and I'd stumble in my parka, sit in, and they'd just go, just say this one line, army, be the best. And then for about the next 2 years, that was my voice on the army recruitment ads. And every time it ran, I earned a lot of money. So that's how I bought my first flat. And the other one I did that was great for quite a few years was the Duracell Bunny. I mean, I wasn't the Duracell Bunny's voice because Duracell Bunny is a mute. He doesn't talk. But I was on all of the ads at the end, like Duracell lasts twice as long as any other battery on the market, which means you can keep going and going like that. And yeah, man, and so that was like a secret, like because no one knows it's you. You occasionally get people going, "That there's a voice on that ad that sounds just like you," and sometimes I'd keep it on the down low, right? Because I thought, oh, this might, I'm writing in the NME and the Guardian about all these cool bands, and like me kind of selling out to do all these ads for the Army and Wilkinson Sword, it might affect me. But the truth is, it was doubling my income every year, sometimes more. So I was really lucky to be doing that back then. But then it just,
How did you get into it? Was it like one opportunity that you took type thing?
I got into it because, well, I got a job presenting a TV show in 2002 on Channel 5 called The Edit, and it was with Anita Rani, who's now very famous and on things like Countryfile and The One Show. And they gave us this sort of pop culture Saturday morning show to do together. And it was really low budget, which meant that they kind of just left it up to me and Anita to like come up with the ideas. And then there was a few producers who'd make it. And we did it for a year. It was great. And off the back of that, they then gave us a chart show to do on the same channel. So it was like, do you remember there was the chart show on Channel 4? This was like Channel 5 sort of shit version of it, I suppose. And again, it was just me and her talking through the Pepsi chart every week. But it was, we were in this show, you didn't see us. We just voiced it every week. We just had to go into a studio and it would all be like, busted, back in at number 4 with, the year 3000 or whatever. And then we'd make jokes about it. We'd usually take the piss out of bands. Anyway, it wasn't that good, but it was, again, these were the little things. I never stopped working. I never just relied on writing on its own. Writing was my main thing, but I understood that I had to do other things as well if I wanted to have enough money to pay the bills. And because we did that for a year and it was just voiceover, it meant that we had like hundreds and hundreds of hours of voice work. So a voiceover agent in the end inevitably calls up, especially when there's anything a bit pop cultural. So that's why I started doing the MTV stuff or anything that was for a youth brand like PlayStation or whatever. And yeah, they hired us both. And I was with an agent there for about like 8 year on an eight. I had an incredible 8 year run, and in the end, I think my voice was overexposed because I was like a voice whore. And a mate of mine, my best mate, he produces promos for TV channels, and he said that he started a new job somewhere like MTV, and they said. And I said, why haven't you given me any work? I haven't had any voiceover work for ages. You're working at MTV. You should get me in. And he said, I'll try. And he kept being a bit evasive about it. And in the end, I said, look, this has gone on for ages now. I'm actually a bit skinned. And he went, look, I'm going to level with you because I'm a mate. He went, we got a new creative director in at MTV. And someone, not me, suggested you in a meeting to voice a new campaign. And this bloke said, I am sick to death of Sam Delaney's voice. And I will tell you now, I don't want to hear his voice ever again on any channel I've got anything to do with. And I was like, oh, okay, well, fair enough. Maybe I overexposed myself. I better find some other way to supplement my income.
That's it, to be fair. And like just
Mm.
in terms of ideas for like articles and stuff, like I heard you said you're gonna get like a health check, so you just pitch that to someone that's doing an article about it. Is it like to work both ways? Sometimes they'll get in touch with you about ideas and
Yeah,
vice versa. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've gone through phases. So for years, like, I didn't write very regularly because I was doing something else. So like, for a few years I was running my own company. I had a daily radio show on talk radio, so I never really wrote. And so then you're out of the loop. But then what's happened to me is like I wrote the book, the first book about mental health, Sort Your Head Out in 2023. When you put a book out, you tend to write a lot of articles around it for publicity reasons for all the papers. And that puts you back into like the pool, so to speak, of writers, because then they're like, oh, okay, he's around and he's writing about these kind of subjects. And, people on newspapers, they need reliable writers who they think and who they know can write about certain subjects. And suddenly I'd sort of, with each book I think I've done 5 books now. And with each book, you kind of, you reframe yourself as a writer in terms of what subjects you write about. And so these last two books were about mental health. So suddenly, you write for I must have written articles for all the main papers for both books. And the editor who commissions you to write that piece, which is just usually a publicity piece, they then think, oh, he's around and he's a middle-aged guy who writes about things like sobriety, addiction, mental health, men's health related issues, which I'd never really done before. But then I was found myself being in demand for that. So then people ring you up and say, oh, we've got this story. Would you like to write it? And if I'm available and it sounds interesting, I will. Or occasionally I will have something that I want to do. Yeah, occasionally it might be something that's, if not a blag, then a bit like one, like me thinking, oh, I want to get a health check. I'll write about it. But I don't usually do it in that sense. Usually I'll think, this is a good idea that needs writing about. But
Hmm.
because I'm busy with other stuff and I do like a podcast every day on top like Time Machine, and I got so many different ventures on. I've usually got a new book on the go, so I'm researching my next book at the moment. I go through phases where I pitch, but at the moment, no, I would get people approaching me. So like, and the big issue, I've written a column for them for 15 years, like I say, and occasionally the editor there is another ex-NME guy called Paul McNamee. He's an incredible bloke. In fact, you should have him on this podcast if you hadn't already,
Yeah, yeah.
because he was very sort of prominent music writer at the NME and the noughties and's got loads of great stories. And he him or one of the other guys there will just say, oh, are you around to do an interview? So like earlier this year, they said, oh, Paul Jarvis's Cocker's going to do an exclusive around the comeback with Big Issue. Will you interview him? And I'm like, yeah, 100% yes, I will do that. And that's just brilliant. Do you know what I mean? So I'm lucky if you're kind of reliable. I don't want to talk myself down to write. I'm not going to say I'm a great writer, but what I am is I've commissioned on the other side, and then there's a lot of freelance writers around who will let you down either by not delivering the copy on time or delivering shit copy or being difficult. And so I realised at an early stage from being on the other side of the fence and having phases in my life where I've been an editor, that as long as you like will say yes, you'll be low maintenance, you'll be there on time, you'll write the copy and it will arrive on deadline in good shape, then you're already way ahead of the game if you want to compete in a freelance market in British journalism.
Right, right. Interesting. And like, what's the idea for the next book, if you can tell us anything?
I'm thinking of writing about what it's not fully formed yet, but it'll have something to do with what we teach young people about mental health. Because a lot of my books is kind of me looking back and thinking, if only I'd known about how to cope with this shit, or if only I had the tools to deal with certain things in my life, I might not have fallen into all the bad habits and really only relearn how to sort of live my life and cope with mental health. When I was in my 40s, when I turned 40 and got sober, that was when I sort of started my whole education. And so the thing I keep coming back to is I could have easily learnt this stuff when I was like 5, but no one ever talked about things like mental health or processing your emotions or just dealing with life's ups and downs. It didn't really get discussed to my generation, at least. So I just sort of thought I want to do something where I go round, maybe travel a bit, looking at different countries, different cultures, different education systems, and working out what it is we should be telling our kids to make them perhaps more robust, more resilient, more able to cope with the slings and arrows of being a human being.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Because like a lot of the cliches around mental health are, don't know, like phrases like, just be yourself type thing, kind of make more sense when you're older. Like someone said
Mm.
that to me when I was younger. I wouldn't know how to be myself really. So I
Yeah,
know what you
exactly.
mean.
Because you wouldn't have known who you were, I
Yeah, yeah.
suppose. So yeah, it's just like a therapist said to me when I first got sober, oh, you've got you've got yeah, you stop emotionally maturing when you start drinking. When did you start drinking? And I said, when I was about 12. And she said, well, then you stopped emotionally maturing then because whenever you had something uncomfortable to deal with emotionally or mentally, you would have turned to drink or drugs. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what I did. That was my main coping mechanism for anything. She went, so now your emotional age is sort of like 12 because you haven't developed since then. And I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, that's kind of true. I agree with that. And so that was when I was 40. I'm 50 now. So the last 10 years, I've been trying to close that gap and learn more sustainable, less destructive, more positive ways of dealing with the inevitable ups and downs of your mood on a daily basis without just going and getting twatted.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean, definitely. All right, well, let's crack through the remaining songs then. The aforementioned Kanye West with Through the Wire. Yeah, brilliant song to be fair, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant song. Shaka Khan, one of my favorite artists of all time, who he sampled on it. And I guess this was probably my first exposure to Kanye West. I think it was the first single off his first album, College Dropout. That's my favorite of his albums. But like I say, there's sort of a trilogy of them in the noughties where I just thought he was incredible. He was really kind of pushing rap and hip hop on to a place it hadn't been before. His lyrics were so intelligent and so like funny, and this is a beautiful kind of got a very soulful vibe to it because of the Shaka Khan sample. I remember seeing the video when I was in a gym, which was rare for me in those days, but on a treadmill in a gym that they had MTV on. I vividly remember seeing it and thinking, this is brilliant. And yeah, I love this whole album. And it's such a shame that Kanye's so mad now.
Have you seen that documentary about him on Netflix?
No,
There's a really good bit around this song where he plays it to Pharrell Williams.
yeah,
And when it clicks with Pharrell what the lyrics are about and like Kanye's accident and stuff,
mm, mm.
Pharrell has to leave the room because he's too blown away by it.
Wow, really? That's
He goes into the
incredible.
corridor, he's like, I can't believe how good it is. It's mad.
That's amazing. Oh, I'm definitely watching. I love stuff like that. I absolutely love stuff like that. And Pharrell also features on this list and is another great hero.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, let's play this one then. Here's Through the Wire by Kanye West. And then, yeah, did a bit of research on the next one. I think it's down as 99 in on Spotify, but I'll let you get away with it.
Oh no, what one is it?
Badly Drawn Boy, but it might have come out again in the early 2000s.
Shit. Okay, let me swap it. Let me
No, it's
swap
all
it,
right.
and you
Oh,
can
it's up
edit
to
it
you, but
because
yeah.
I would have gone. I want to have about a badly drawn boy track in there, so I'm going to
Okay.
say "Silent Sigh," which is from the soundtrack of About a Boy,
Right,
which
right,
would
okay.
have been a close. There was a close choice between those two. Anyway, I mean, I love
Yeah.
all of his music, um, but let's say "Silent Sigh," which I think was the noughties. Can we
Yeah,
play that one
2002 it's saying.
instead?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, all good, mate, yeah. Oh, yeah, here's Badly Drawn Boy then with a silent sigh. I think he's going to be, had BC Camp out on recently. I don't know if you've heard of him.
yeah.
Uh, but he's apparently Badly Drawn Boy's joining him for the Manchester gig, which
Oh, really?
should be interesting, yeah.
I've never seen him live. I heard he was not very good live. Is that
Oh,
true? Is
okay.
that something people say about him?
I'm not sure. I mean, he's
Okay.
fairly, I don't know. I don't want to say dull. Or he's like got a bit of that. He's got that reputation. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, a bit of a difficult guy. That's what I heard. But anyway, he's very talented.
Yeah, yeah.
And I loved that first album, which, as it turns out, is the 90s. So I won't talk about.
All right, yeah, and then mentioned Pharrell Williams, obviously absolutely prolific over the years, but this song Frontin featuring Jay-Z, why this one?
Because, again, I wanted to. I felt that, like, Pharrell kind of bestrode this era. And so much of the music I like from this era, he was involved in some way or another. Justin Timberlake didn't make the list, but was very close to, and so many of the songs that were written or produced by the Neptunes, and and also even NERD. I nearly put on some of their songs. So it was one of those ones where I thought I've got to have some Pharrell presence on here. So I decided on this one because he's actually singing on it, and yeah, I think this was probably this kind of they had a sound which I think's encapsulated in this song that stretched across like all of the music that was in the charts and was popular throughout this decade. And so I just think, and it's a fantastic sound. I think that this song sort of encapsulates it all. And yeah, I'm just a huge fan. And in the 80s, I loved Michael Jackson. And I always thought that Pharrell sort of was the torchbearer for that kind of Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones style.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yes, well, let's play the song then. Here's Frontin' by Pharrell Williams and Jay-Z. Then the next band, I think I've heard you mention them before, the Concretes, maybe
Yeah.
on Top Flight.
I
But
might
yeah,
have mentioned them on when I came on your
yeah,
pod
probably did.
a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
years ago. Uh, I interviewed them for The Guardian when this song came out, and I loved their. I think I must have seen them live, but there was a lot of gigs back then where I was still drinking, so I don't quite remember. But I spent a good day with them, quite a boozy day, having lunch, and one of those sort of articles where you just get to hang out with the band and just chat to them and have a few drinks and just kind of write up the vibe. And I think we were in Soho, and they're a really lovely band. But to be honest, this song, which I think is fantastic, and again sounds kind of quite 60s, a little bit sort of Phil Spector girl group, which is like I said about the Johnny Boy song, I love that sound. I love that sort of music. And clearly it was having a bit of a revival moment in this decade because both these songs and others, like Girls Aloud, were sort of channeling, the Ronettes or the Shirelles or the Crystals. And but this is, I think they're Swedish, the Concretes. And to be honest, I haven't kept up with their output since. I remember loving this album, but this song has just remained on a lot of my Spotify playlists over the years because it's like perfect sort of short 3 minute, very exhilarating pop with a hint of soul to it.
Okay, yes, yeah. Well, let's play it then. Here's the Concretes with You Can't Hurry Love. I think, judging by Spotify, they might have stopped in 2010, but I could be wrong.
Right. Well, that's
Yeah.
neat, isn't it, for a noughties podcast?
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Try and get them on. And then the last song, Richard X and Khalees. I was like, where have I heard Richard X before? And then I did a bit of a like a deep dive into him and realized he worked with Liberty X. I was
Yeah, and
really,
that's a great song as well.
yeah, it's cool.
That's
They did a couple, but Holding On For You is really good. Yeah,
yeah, but they also didn't he do the song Being Nobody,
yeah, yeah.
um, which was he sampled Being Boiled by Human League
Right, yeah.
and by uh Ain't Nobody by Shaka Khan. So you're like, oh my God, this guy's got the best music taste in the world. Bringing together Shaka Khan and Human League, those are two of my favorite ever acts. And then he put it all together and got Liberty X to sing it. And there was some really classy pop going round in this era. And Liberty X, who I think had come out of a reality show like Pop Idol or something like that, and they hadn't even won it. So you thought they were naff, but someone put them together with Richard X, and that was a banger. But I decided not to choose that one. I wanted presents for Richard X because I think that his sound again was quite prevalent across the charts, and but I chose to go with Khalees because. Again, like Khalees was one of my favourite artists of that or any era. She had loads of contenders, both of her own albums and the stuff that she did with Outkast. And I think she did I think Pharrell produced quite a lot of her track. In fact, did Pharrell do Milkshake? Possibly, yes. But this song is a beauty. And yeah, it's just like there was so much great sophisticated pop stuff that was like in the charts that teenage girls would love, but was like really kind of just beautiful and polished and wonderful, and producers like Richard X and Pharrell were responsible for a lot of that.
Yeah, I remember like Sugar Babes, like kind of fit that category as well. Yeah,
Yeah, Girls Aloud and Sugar Babes, totally.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's play it then. Here's Finest Dreams by Richard X and Khalees. All right, nice one, Sam. Appreciate that.
Oh, I loved
And
doing it. I loved it. And I can't tell you, like, when you first messaged me, I think I was away in Thailand and I spent a lot of the 2 weeks just fiddling around on Spotify trying to whittle this down. So I love it. I mean, I couldn't think of a better decade probably, even though I loved the
oh,
music of
really?
this. Well, I would say that my favorite decade of music is probably the 70s. And I love the 80s as well. But after that, I would say the noughties and probably noughties because I was involved a little bit in writing about music and I went to probably loads and loads of gigs during that era. And it's so eclectic as well. Like it's hard to nail down what the sound is. that I probably wouldn't have as much music from any other era than I do for the 90s, like on my Spotify. So doing it was just the best, but also really difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have like influence on your kids' music taste? And obviously you said about Oasis, but do they come to you for music choices, or did they at one point?
They do, but they pretend that they don't. Like if you look at like they play like this playlist that I made, right? For you was originally called Top 10 Naughties, but then it expanded. So now it's called Excellent Naughties. And it's got about, yeah, like I say, like somewhere between 80 and 100 tracks on. And I've played it in the car when all four of us have been in the car a few times and they love them. And last night I played them all 10 of these tracks and we played a game of Beat the Intro. And what was interesting was it was sort of like even between my wife, my son, and my daughter in terms of beating the intro on these tracks. So they know this music, but they would say that that's not anything to do with me, that they've discovered it off their own back. But all of these bands they absolutely love, and I know it's because of my influence.
Well, is that where you guess the intro type thing?
Yeah, you guessed the intro. So all
Okay.
of these songs I just played and saw who could shout out the name of the song first. And
Right,
we
right.
did 10, and it was about even between them all. And then we did the rest of them. And my daughter, who's 18, was unbelievable. She was like getting songs off like one bar.
Wow.
It's a fun game to play with the family.
Who got Johnny by out of interest?
Oh my wife got that. They didn't know that song. I must admit they didn't know that one. My wife did though.
Ah, fair play. Were you on Jeremy Vine last week? Or
No, on
something?
Vanessa.
Oh, were you on it again last week?
Yeah, I'm doing it sort of regular now. Like she
Yes, I
asked
saw
me
the
to
custard
come on.
episode, but
Oh yeah, that was great. Disappointingly, last week I didn't get any custard to drink, so I was a bit pissed off. But then I think I'm on it again next week. Yeah. So yeah, I haven't done TV for a long time, but now they want me to go on that like once a week or once every couple of weeks. So fuck it, it's a laugh.
yeah, yeah, yes, I'll have a look.
Yeah.
All right, mate, I'll let you go anyway, but cheers for that.
Nice one. When
It'll
it's
be
out,
out.
just give me a
It,
shout and I'll share it.
yeah, nice one. I think it's last Tuesday of the month, so yeah, I'll give you a shout.
Brilliant.
All
All right,
right,
mate. Nice to
cheers, Sam.
catch
Yeah,
up. Take it easy. All the best.
and you, mate. Yeah, cheers.